sometimes dentists don't think they need to be told what to do. I think it's very valuable, huge, amazing product, made a lot of money. AI boom, image detection first being used, where it was a facial recognition or just recognizing number plates on cars. I thought the same could be applied to dentistry.
Thank you, Oscar, for your time.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I think it's been one of those long overdue catch-ups. I'm glad we've found finally time to hear your story.
Yeah, it was really good to meet you in Bacon and Spice the other day, just by coincidence. And we haven't seen each other in a while, but a lot of people coming and going.
Oh, these days, yes. It's a lot of changes in Shanghai for sure.
Yeah.
One of the things that keeps bothering me from your LinkedIn profile, this is your LinkedIn title.
Yeah, sure.
Can you explain or decode what that means?
Oh, the letters behind
yes.
the name. Yeah, so it's very common for medical or dental professions to have letters after the name, and I would say it's more useful for people within the profession, because it's absolutely understandable, why there's so many letters. BDS is like a simple bachelor's degree, undergraduate degree, Bachelor of Dental Surgery. All right, is our undergraduate. But then I also have a PG DIP, PDC is postgraduate diploma in primary dental care.
Okay.
And MSc ASH is Master in Science in Advanced Specialist Healthcare.
All right.
So the reason why we have these is, in many industries, it's very common to do a bachelor's, then a master's, and then maybe PhD. But in dentistry or medicine, how do I put this, is a master's, I don't want to discredit a master's or a PhD, but they are very academic qualifications, whereas we have a lot of practical qualifications in dentistry. As you can imagine, it's one thing knowing the science, but being able to do it in the chair is another thing, and that's why we have a lot of different assessments that aren't necessarily the same accreditation as like a master's, but actually might even be more useful than some masters, such as the postgraduate diploma.
So you have very international and diverse background.
Yeah.
Hong Kong heritage, grew up in London, now we're living and working in Shanghai.
Yeah.
You speak at least 3 languages fluently, Mandarin, English, Cantonese.
Yeah.
Tell me more about your world tour and what are the main chapters of your journey?
I think, I was born in UK. My parents moved there around 70 years ago now.
Oh.
Very long time ago. And they left Hong Kong to go there to start a restaurant, entrepreneurs. And as you can imagine, at that time, food and beverage was a great industry to be in. And they made a lot of money doing that, enough to put me through school and dental school, which I'm very grateful for. So I did all that. I did all my education in the UK, and I hadn't had any plan to really move anywhere. Actually, at the time, I quite liked the UK, but after I graduated, I moved to Brighton, which is south of the UK, and I did oral surgery and general dentistry. 2 jobs, working under the NHS, which is the National Health Service, and I think everybody will have a different opinion on the NHS, but my opinion is at the time I felt like the cuts were really causing a lot of strain on that system, and that's the kind of a big reason why I wanted to leave British healthcare and see what was out there. So then I applied to a few jobs all around the world: Singapore, Australia, Sydney, and Shanghai. And it's pretty easy to get a job in Singapore and Australia, And that's where most of my colleagues at that time went. I'd say 50% of my colleagues went to Australia, actually, yeah. As you can imagine, for British people, they really like, Australia is a great change for them. Sunny, nice, and a different kind of healthcare system. But I didn't want to go to a place where all my colleagues were going to be. I wanted to challenge myself, and I didn't know anybody in Shanghai. So that's the reason why I came here, and I wanted to learn Mandarin and learn more about Chinese culture on a deeper level, because as you can tell by my accent, I'm very westernized. There's a lot of aspects of me that are not very Chinese, and I wanted to really learn more about it, especially growing up. My parents might be asking me, there's a lot of things you don't know about Chinese culture, not necessarily in a patronizing way, but I definitely wanted to learn about where I was from, definitely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So from a dentist to a startup founder pioneering AI dental care, where did you see the opportunity, and in general, how much technology penetration is there in dental care?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I first saw the opportunity when there was that AI boom, as you call it, like a few years ago, where there was AI everything, and maybe some startups weren't even doing AI but calling themselves AI. I think when I saw image detection first being used, where it was a facial recognition or just recognizing number plates on cars, I thought the same could be applied to dentistry. You could use the same technology just to detect decay or any kind of disease. If you think about it, whilst I won't say it's like 100%, we cannot rely 100% on AI, I think it would provide a really good adjunct and assistant to the dentist. So that's really where I saw the opportunity, and then we did some first early prototypes with a team from Quebec, actually, just to test out the technology. But then I sort of changed partners halfway through as well. That's really how it started. When we talk about technology penetration, I would say dentistry has classically been an industry which has been a bit slow to adopt technology, if I'm being honest, and even now. But it's getting there. We're seeing more and more usage of intraoral scanners, which I think will be very important in the next 10-20 years. The technology of cone beam CT, which is 3D imaging, 3D printing. A lot of technology is slowly getting there. But definitely some challenges, which we can talk about as well.
Absolutely. So what's Aidencare?
Aidencare is my startup. We started as a tech company which concentrates on image detection. Like I said, we started by detecting teeth. First we would have an image, and the Aidencare technology would detect what kind of teeth was on an image. And then later we started to do other forms of detection, such as tooth decay or tooth staining or calculus, like dental plaque, that kind of thing, simple things, just to help the dentist detect any disease. But also later I found out it's also a good tool for quality control as well. If you're managing as well, it's a very good quality control.
So how important is it for dentists here in China to have this tool? Is it something crucial? Is something missing? Or it's just nice to have?
So I think that when we look at China, the dental industry is definitely a situation where we've got a huge shortage of dentists, and there is a lack of training to the international standard. So also, if we look at how dentists are trained here, or how do you become a dentist here? Now, classically, where I'm from and where a lot of places would have this system is you would go to a dental school. Right? You do 5 years in dental school, where you will be supervised doing dental work such as fillings, etc. And then you graduate and you have a dental license. You can operate. So in China, you have the first pathway, which is very similar. You have the undergraduate degree, but then after a year, you have to find an internship. Mm-hmm. So after you graduate, in that year, you find an internship, and then you have to take an exam to get your dental license. Mm-hmm. Okay, so after you graduate from your degree, actually, you still can't independently practice as a dentist. And you might do your internship in like a public hospital or something like that. But the other and surprisingly common route is actually you don't have to go to dental school. You can do like an apprenticeship and then choose to take an exam or your own free will. All right, and actually a surprisingly high percentage, last time I checked, was a quarter actually still did not go to dental school, which, if you think about it, is a huge percentage. Now you might think, okay, is that important? Well, you'll find that there'll be huge varying levels of dentists in China with lacking various technical knowledge, and I think that Aidencare is aiming to bridge that gap, because it's one thing we have to, with Aidencare we give the AI eyes to see what the problem is, but we also need to educate the dentist. Once the AI knows what's the situation there, then we need to educate the dentist in actually saying, what is the course of action, what should we do? In other words, providing a treatment plan, which might sound very obvious to dentists, or if you're not a dentist, might sound obvious. Oh, well, surely if you've got decay, you need to do a filling, right? Mm-hmm. Well, actually, sometimes it's not that obvious to somebody that may not have gone to dental school or has a bit of lacking in training. So that's really what I'm aiming to do.
This is great, right? I mean, bridging the gap, so it's always vital and important.
Yeah.
After 5 years of running and working on Aidencare, what are your biggest learnings, both on industry side and business side?
Yeah.
And what are the main challenges that you face at the moment?
I guess this could take up the whole interview. I'll try and break it down from the beginning. I'd say the first challenges were working with a technology team. I'd never done a tech startup before or worked in a technological team. So I think that communication with that team was quite difficult, or working with them in the beginning was quite difficult. And like I said, I switched teams, halfway through. And then deciding how to do the prototype, I think, is one thing, because in the beginning you have all these ideas. You want to make it like this, you want to make it like that, you want it to be perfect, it has to do this, you want to package it into like this huge amazing product, which, as you can imagine, is very investment heavy. There's no need to necessarily do that. You want to have like a very simple prototype that has a particular function and just test it into the market straight away. And I think that I was always told, go to market. I didn't really appreciate how important it was to actually go to market. Mm-hmm. Right? Whether you think it's going to fail or succeed, you need to go to market. You need to test it out in the market properly as well, not just with a bunch of friends. So what's this like? Yeah, that's super cool. Yeah, I think your idea is amazing. No, you need to test it with the real market. And I definitely took way too long doing that. Took way too long, investing in this, investing in that, which was time and money, which I think is a common mistake that entrepreneurs do, because what I found was, firstly, I was surprised at how difficult people found it to use the technology. So in technology, we think about UI and UX. In my head, I find technology very easy to use. But again, maybe not everybody necessarily thinks like how you do. Right? So I think the technology is easy to use, but it doesn't mean that somebody else thinks it's easy to use. They might think it's actually really difficult to use.
Assumptions.
And also, assumptions, right? So that was quite important. I think getting people to pay for it, right, seeing the value in it, is also another thing. Like, I think it's very valuable. The last 10 minutes I've just been saying is bridging the gap, and I think most people can understand, that's a great tool. You have an AI tool that can see dental disease and tell a dentist what to do. Well, there's a few issues with that. Is sometimes dentists don't think they need to be told what to do. Right? Sometimes they think, well, why would I need an AI? I'm trained. Everybody, I think, believes that they are very confident in their decision that they don't need any extra assistance. Or if they do need extra assistance, they might not necessarily listen to an AI. So you have that issue. Did they see the value in it? Which is also combined with the fact, will people pay for it? All right. So that's one thing. Or who is going to pay for it? Is it the dentist going to pay for it, or is it going to be a practice owner that's going to pay for it? Who is your market? And I, did a few testing when I was testing the market, going to market, who the market was, and that was a big lesson for me, I think. And I think finally, we talk about the market size. I mean, we at the beginning of the conversation, I said there is a shortage of dentists in China. Well, that's exactly the issue. I'm trying to solve an issue, but then that was also an issue for my startup, because if the market size is small, then who's going to be buying the technology? Who's going to be adopting the technology? Because we just established that there's not enough dentists, which then, really I had to think about things carefully, and pivot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Those are the golden tips, right? I'm going definitely to put them as the takeaways of this interview for other entrepreneurs as well, to pay attention again and again, right, for those very important things. How would you rate the importance of having the international background in business?
Yeah. When I first saw that question, my first instinct was to say that, in China, I would actually flip it around. I'd actually say, local knowledge is so important, But then I had to think about that question, what are my strengths as an international person, right? And I think that bringing that international level or that international standard of dentistry here is really what my strength is. And I would I'll stick with that, but that is really important. Otherwise, I don't really have a USP. Me, myself, or my technology doesn't really have a USP. What's so special, we talked about it, it's a just treatment plan, but what's so special about that is that it's going to an international standard. And when we do talk about dentistry or any kind of science, we can go into so much depth. And certainly having my education in the UK, I'm very grateful for, because it has, put me at a level of an international standard of dentistry. So, being able to speak in different languages, you get to also not just speaking, but experiencing culture here in the UK, also in the UK. It really opens your world up to see things very differently.
But you don't feel it as a challenge, right, being with the international background, talking to local potential partners and clients?
Actually, I do, which is one thing I would say is that another thing I learned is that I have I adopted a very strong local partner, all right, to help me with all sides of government relations, China admin, that kind of thing. Because certainly setting up a company, you understand how it is going to these bureaus here and there when you're setting up. It is a headache, and it's not always that well organized, or the system changes every 2 months. So suddenly
Correct.
It used to be you got to go to the bureau, or now it's you got to make an appointment, or it's you have to go and make an appointment. So you turn up at the door and you make an appointment at the door. A lot of these little tips and tricks, it really helps to have a good local partner as well.
Absolutely. Keeping up with this gonna waste a lot of time for you, right? Time that actually you can spend on business.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think, I think as the founder, as the entrepreneur, you need to maintain that vision. That vision's very important. But yeah, like you said, you need some help with the other
absolutely,
admin,
absolutely.
et cetera. Yeah.
So now you have next big chapter of your life.
Yeah.
So in our last chat, you mentioned that you open up a clinic, dental clinic.
Exactly. Yeah.
So tell me more about this. And actually, I'm curious how difficult it is to open up a dental clinic. That's something that I don't do every day.
I don't think many people do that every day.
Exactly.
So I'll start on why I moved into that direction, and the clinic is also called Aidencare. It's because we talked about the technology adoption amongst the utilization amongst the market, and I found that essentially not many people were adopting it. But I still firmly believe that Aidencare has a very strong application in the world. So I just thought, well, why not better than just to start my own clinic, which I was already running a clinic. It wasn't my clinic, but I was running a clinic. I thought, well, why not just set up my own clinic, because that will also generate cash flow to feed any startup. And as you can imagine, cash flow is king. It's very important in a startup, and it's something that I do already. So I set up a separate company to set up that clinic, and it's by no means an easy task. Sorting out the government side of things. There's a lot of bureaus to appease, all right? And for example, the health bureau, construction, fire, etc. All those kind of, fire and construction might be pretty standard in any industry, but here we've also got healthcare as well. It takes a long time. So what usually happens is you need to find a site that the bureau approves. Right, and it's very difficult because it has to comply with their policies, and there's a whole bunch of policies and guidelines. Then you have to submit designs to the bureau, and they kind of have a review and say, yes, is it okay to start there? Is it not okay to start there? Can you review design, etc., etc. And then once you got the go ahead, then you can actually apply for construction, which also is a lengthy process. I mean, I'm saying this in sentences, but bear in mind all these processes are months apart, right? This takes months for each process. So then you apply for construction. You have to have obviously a good relationship with the building management as well. They need to know what you're doing. Can they do your service? What that means is, can the building actually provide dental care? Why that makes sense is, firstly, it's like, does that land, can it provide healthcare from a policy point of view, but also practically, does the water can the water get into the room? All those things. And then you start, that's, by the way, that's after you've rented the place as well. So whilst you're doing this, you're actually eating up a lot of rent as well. And then afterwards you start construction. Once you start the construction, then you have all those checks as normal, like construction checks, fire checks, water checks, etc. Then you've got to get the bureau in and then get the checks. So there's a lot of checks, a lot of stages, not at all easy. And I've said that I've done that in that particular order. I've definitely known other individuals that may have done it in different orders. So they might rent the place first without any kind of approval, and then start the approval process then. And I can definitely share some very interesting stories that happened early on when we were trying to set up the clinic. Was we set up in a particular building, and there was a competitor that also had was looking to set up in that building, and they already rented the place, but actually we had got approval on that place first. But what happened was, suddenly when they got wind of it, they sped up their approval process and managed to finish construction and get approved before we even started. So you can imagine it's a dog-eat-dog world out there. I mean, that was quite ruthless, and it was also a learning experience as well. How sometimes these big chains, it's also a real estate game, right? Because only one building can usually only have one dental clinic. So they knew that, whether it's from a policy point of view or the building management. So sometimes building management, they have that rule, is only one dental clinic per building or per project. Why I say per project is, as you can imagine, sometimes the project has several buildings. Right. We weren't even in the same building as that competitor, and we weren't allowed to open. So sometimes these big chains, they actually just occupy a space for years. In that particular situation, it was more than a year they had occupied that space without actually doing anything.
Wow.
And that's not the only case. And as soon as we started, then they started, and edged us out.
Time has come.
Yeah, it's competitive, isn't it? Yeah.
But that's exciting, right?
At the same time, very exciting, and thankfully it all worked out.
And it pushes you forward.
Yeah,
it
worked out in the end, because then we found a new place, and we actually had to move out of that place, and we found a new place in the end.
So on average, how long does it take to open up a dental clinic if everything goes smooth?
I would still say it takes around a year.
A year.
I mean, I've definitely been in other projects where I had to set up clinics for somebody else, other companies in China, and it took 2 years as well, 2-3 years. It's sometimes very normal. And again, it depends on how that company wants to do the process.
Yeah.
Like I said, sometimes they're quite happy to eat up rent for a year whilst they do the approval process, because as you can imagine, there's another scenario that you don't want to face. Is you don't want to be in a situation where you go through the approval process and then you want to rent that space and then that space is gone, right? Because that is not a good situation either, and you also might not look that good in front of the bureau when you say, okay, great, we're all ready to go. Okay, let's rent the space. No, it's gone. Well, what do you mean it's gone? Yeah, we rented it out to a restaurant. It's like, what? But we've been looking at a space for like a year. Yeah, exactly. You've been looking at a space for a year, dude. So that's why a lot of companies actually, they just say, let's just rent the space first. But that is a challenge as a small-time entrepreneur, is getting that balance of, when do you rent that space? Yeah.
Balance is always essential in everything.
Yeah.
Where do you see Aidencare as the AI startup and the clinic in a few years from now? What is the big next milestone?
I think that because there's two separate companies, the clinic company and the tech company, and tech company will still be supplying tech to the clinic. And that's what it will be initially, and people will be able to visualize. When I say people, whether it's investors or the market, will be able to visualize a distinction between the clinic and the tech, and how much is Aidencare Clinic paying for that tech, even though they're both my companies, but you've got to separate the cash flow. And once you demonstrate a use in a real life situation, then I think it'll be easier to put forward the concept to whether it's other segments of the market in China or internationally as well. That you've got an AI dental clinic, which is essentially, what I'm aiming to achieve.
Thank you so much for your time, for your sharing. Super
pleasure.
Insightful, super helpful. Viewers and listeners will have a better understanding about the AI dental care and the processes here in China specifically. I look forward to more updates coming up from Aidencare, and also look forward to visiting the new clinic. It's not something that I'm really excited about, going to a dentist, but I would love to go and see how things going.
And that's the thing, like, we are reinventing dentistry, not just in a technological way, but I definitely have, the way it's designed as well, is that it's supposed to be a calming environment, especially for people that are nervous. So definitely come and visit.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Please like, share, comment, and we see you next time.